हेलो एवरीवन। डिस्कस करते हैं किस तरह ट्रेंडिंग न्यूज से इंग्लिश ग्रामर रूल्स, वोकाबुलरी एंड रीडिंग स्किल्स सीख सकते हैं। तो चलिए स्टार्ट करते हैं। फर्स्ट इज नासा अनाउंसेस। नासा यहाँ पे सिंगुलर फॉर्म में है, तो सिंगुलर वर्ब होती है V5। एस या ई एस लगाते हैं, V प्लस एस और ई एस। नासा अनाउंसेस चेंज। अच्छा, यहाँ पे नासा अनाउंसेस जो है यहाँ तक नाउन है और चेंज वर्ब टू इट्स मून लैंडिंग प्लान्स। इट्स लैंडिंग, इट्स मून लैंडिंग प्लान्स। नेक्स्ट, नासा इज एडिंग। नासा इज एडिंग प्रेजेंट कंटिन्यूअस है, इज प्लस V4 है। नासा इज एडिंग एन एक्स्ट्रा मिशन to its Artemis program before its attempts before it attempts to land astronauts on the moon for the first time in half a century. The original plan was to fly around the moon for the Artemis 2 mission, which relative pronoun है मिशन के लिए, which is currently scheduled for April। अच्छा, जब स्केड्यूल टाइम होती है इसमें प्रेजेंट यूज कर सकते हैं, which is currently scheduled for April, and then attempt a lunar landing with Artemis 3 in 2028. Now Artemis 3 will stay closer to home. A crew will head यहाँ पे वर्ब 1 है, इसका मतलब गो होता है, go to। A crew will head to low Earth orbit in 2027 to practice docking। अच्छा, यहाँ पे प्रैक्टिस जो है एक होता है प्रैक्टिस, ये वर्ब है और नाउन फॉर्म होती है प्रैक्टिस। CE होता है नाउन फॉर्म। टू प्रैक्टिस डॉकिंग with a lunar lander, NASA said this additional flight would not slow down। यहाँ पे स्लो जो है वर्ब 1 है। Flight would not slow down its return to the moon. It is still aiming for 2028 for one or even 2 lunar landings in what will be Artemis 4 and 5। NASA administrator Judge Isaacman NASA Administrator Judd Ishakman told a media briefing that he was adding an extra step to the Artemis program because he did not want such long gaps between launches. He added that the extra flight to low Earth orbit would have to test the technology before a moon landing. The US Space Agency also provided an update on the Artemis 2 mission, which will see 4 astronauts fly। astronauts यहाँ पे plural है, 4 astronauts fly around the far side of the Moon and back to Earth. NASA was targeting March. NASA was targeting March for the launch, but its plans were delayed. NASA was targeting March for the launch, but its plans were delayed after a helium leak was discovered on the Space Launch System rocket. The rocket has now been taken from the launch pad to the vehicle assembly building at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, where it will be repaired. Where it will be repaired, the earliest launch opportunity is now in April. The earliest launch opportunity is now in April, but NASA said the exact date would depend on how long the technical work would take. Next. The new plans are a significant change. Significant यहाँ पे adjective है और change noun है. The new plans are a significant change to Artemis program. Isaacman said the current architect was not a pathway to success. Was not a pathway to success. You don't go from one uncrewed launch of SLS Artemis 1 wait 3 years. Go around the moon Artemis 2 wait 3 years and land on it. He said sending the Orion capsule, which is the spacecraft that the astronauts will travel to the moon in, and a lunar lander into low Earth orbit first would reduce risks. I would certainly much rather have the astronauts testing out the integrated systems of the lander and Orion in low Earth orbit than on the moon, he said. It is also an opportunity for us. It is also an opportunity for us, maybe, to get our suits up there before the astronauts actually have to wear them on the surface of the moon. This is all going to help take down risks for a subsequent landing. However, NASA's lunar plans have a major missing part. The lander that will take astronauts to the moon's surface has not yet been selected. Elon Musk's SpaceX company has a contract to build the lander, which will be flown to the moon on a SpaceX Starship rocket, but delays to the Starship rocket have led NASA to ask SpaceX for a new streamlined plan to speed a return to the moon. Next. NASA has also asked rival company Blue Origin, which is owned by Jeff Bezos, to come up with an accelerated plan for a lunar lander. Isaacman said the Artemis 3 docking in low Earth orbit could take place with one or both of the landers. The US is under pressure. The US is under pressure to return to the moon. China is aiming for a lunar landing by 2030 and has been making steady progress towards this. Both nations are planning to land. Both nations are planning to land at the moon's south pole and are competing for the best spots to build their lunar bases. Next, Wildlife Trust Centenary Free Weekend in Nature. The UK's oldest wildlife trust is opening. The UK's oldest wildlife trust is opening its sites for free for 3 days as part of its centenary celebrations. The Norfolk Wildlife Trust was founded by Dr. Sidney Long. In 2026, he bought 435 acres of marsh at Clay next the sea as a bird breeding sanctuary for all time. Clay Marshes now attracts more than 1 lakh visitors a year. Its purchased help it purchased help pave the way to what would become a nationwide network of country wildlife trusts. Chief Executive Elite Lynn said, It is a great honor to be at the helm of such a landmark organization for UK nature conservation as it reaches this special milestone. It is incredible. It is incredible. एडजेक्टिव है. इट इज के बाद लिख सकते हैं एडजेक्टिव. इट इज इनक्रेडिबल टू थिंक that the UK wide country wildlife trust movement began with the purchase of clay marshes a century ago, said Lynn. Following 100 years of wildlife conservation in Norfolk, we have achieved so much and honed the skills and experience to secure a wilder, healthier, and more prosperous Norfolk into the next century. However, Norfolk's nature still faces huge threats. That is why we are raising our ambitions and looking forward to the next 100 years with hope. Next. Spectacular images reveal unique sea creatures. Unique, सबसे अलग. Unique sea creatures and coral of Caribbean islands. Next. The waters of the glittering coastlines of Britain's Caribbean territories have long been a mystery. But now scientists on the first expedition beyond the island's shallow have discovered an underwater mountain range, a massive blue hole. Coral reefs apparently untouched. Coral reefs apparently untouched by climate change and never before seen sea creatures. Operating 24 hours a day for the last 6 weeks, researchers subjected cameras and other equipment to extreme water pressure, recording as deep as 6,000 meters to navigate the Cayman Islands, Anguilla, and Turks Caicos. They were forced to depend on decades old maps with serious errors and whole areas missing. The UK Centre for Environment, Fisheries, Aquaculture, Science has shared their footage and discoveries exclusively with BBC News. Next. The UK government shares responsibility. The UK government shares responsibility. Responsibility यहाँ पे noun है. For प्रोटेक्टिंग। फॉर यहाँ पे प्रीपोजिशन है और प्रीपोजिशन के बाद हमेशा V1 प्लस ING लिखते हैं, तो प्रोटेक्ट प्लस ING, प्रोटेक्टिंग, फॉर प्रोटेक्टिंग द आइलैंड्स नेचर। The UK government shares responsibility for protecting the islands nature and यहाँ पे islands पहले से ही एस लगा हुआ है, प्लूरल फॉर्म में है तो सिर्फ एपोस्ट्रोफी लिखते हैं, अगर सिंगुलर होता तो एपोस्ट्रोफी एस लगाते। The islands nature and up to 90% of Britain's unique species are found around these and other British overseas territories. Now scientists say the race is on to protect। टू के बाद V1 लगाते हैं, टू एक प्रीपोजिशन है जो टू के बाद हमेशा V1 लगाते हैं। Now scientists say the race is on to protect this relatively pristine environment from the threats of climate change and pollution. This is the first step into environments people have never seen. People have never seen and in some cases didn't know existed, says Professor James Bell, leading the expedition on the British research ship RSS James Cook with scientists from the three islands. Just yesterday we found a kind of type of swimming sea cucumber and we still don't know what it is. What it is, ये स्टेटमेंट है। स्टेटमेंट जब हम लिखते हैं तो क्वेश्चन वर्ड के बाद सब्जेक्ट, उसके बाद वर्ब होता है। जैसे व्हाट क्वेश्चन वर्ड है, इट सब्जेक्ट है और इज वर्ब है। अगर क्वेश्चन होता तो व्हाट इज इट होते। वी स्टिल डोंट नो व्हाट इट इज, ही एडेड। Calling for diversity, he is seen really astonishing. The Cayman Islands, Anguilla, Turks, and Caicos are home to 146 species that only live in those territories. And this research expedition should add even more to the list. The team documented nearly 14,000 individual specimens and 290 different types of marine creatures. Although more scientific work is needed to confirm their findings. Findings भी यहाँ पे noun है। They found a pelican eel with a glowing pink tail that flushes red to lure in food, and barely a fish with tubular eyes pointing upwards to see the silhouettes of its prey, and a dragonfish with a glowing rod under its chin. Taking to BBC News, as the ship navigated an uncharted underwater mountain called Pickle Bank, Bell said, "We are not sure how close to it we are. It is quite difficult to map it without running. It is quite difficult to map it without running the risk of running aground." Next, the team eventually worked out that the mountain, which is north of Little Cayman Island, rises from 2,500 meters deep to about 20 meters below the sea surface. Footage reveals a bright blue, yellow, and orange mountainside teeming with life. Golden towers of coral growing next to coral that look like large brains. The team filmed fish darting between gorgonian, whip coral, and jelly like orange sea sponges near black coral. They have found one of the healthiest, most diverse reefs in the region, free from the ravages of the stony coral disease plaguing the Caribbean. It is likely that this reef is protected for now by its depths and the mountain's steep slopes. Next, deep water and mesophotic reefs are also usually too deep to be affected by warming oceans temperatures. Caused largely by climate change, which have damaged 80% of the world's corals since 2023 using deep sea cameras and echo sounders lowered from the ship's side. The researchers have mapped almost 25,000 square kilometers of sea floor and captured 20,000 photos including of glowing lantern fish and alien like cephalopods. We know the surface of Mars or the moon better than we know the surface of our own planet. You send a satellite around them and map them in a few weeks, Bell says. We can't do that for our ocean. We have to map. We have to map it bit by bit using acou- acoustic instruments on ships, he explains. In Turks and Caicos, the team discovered something missing from existing sea charts. An extremely steep 3,200-meter high mountain ridge stretching 70 kilometers along the sea bed west of a place called Gentry Bank. Next. They were also astonished, wonderful. They were also astonished to discover a massive vertical sinkhole called a blue hole, 75 kilometers south of a bank called Grand Turk that formed when Cape collapsed inwards. Imagine taking an ice cream scoop out of the seafloor. That is what we saw, a crater about 300-meter wide to 550-meter below the sea level, says Bell. They believe its steep walls could, for, could form the deepest blue hole in the Caribbean, rivaling Belize's famous Great Blue Hole. Usually, nothing lives inside a blue hole, but cameras dropped inside the new discovery show small sponges and species of urchin called large spata- spatangoid and diverse fish species. Next is and 25-kilometer north of Anguilla, the researchers rumors spread by local fishers followed rumors spread by local fishers who had pulled up species of coral while working. The team confirmed there was a 4-kilometer reef with mosaics of coral growing in sponge gardens. They also found black coral that could be thousands of years old, making them some of the oldest ever recorded. It tells us that these environments are really pristine and healthy, says Bell. Next is scientists are interested in these areas of deep water and steep mountains because they can funnel nutrient rich water up to the surface, providing feeding grounds for animals or as fishing spots. On board the ships, on board the ship, CEFAS worked alongside a group of environmental experts from the Cayman Islands, Anguilla and Turks and Caicos, who will use the findings to improve biodiversity management plans and find new fishing opportunities for island communities. Next. Our islands were literally born from the sea. Our islands were literally born from the sea, but when it comes to our offshore environments, we really haven't had a chance before to discover. We really haven't had a chance before to discover what is out there. Kelly Forsyth from the Cayman Islands Department of Environment told BBC News. The island governments joined the research as part of a project called Blue Belt Program. The work should work यहाँ पे noun है. The work should provide information to help the UK fulfill its legally binding UN commitments to protect 30% of the world's ocean by 2030 in designated marine protected areas. Anyone can draw. Can plus V1 है, draw यहाँ पे V1 है. Anyone can draw a box on a map and say that is a marine protected areas. That is a marine protected area. Explains Bell, but unless you know what is in it, you don't know if that is useful at all. तो आज के लिए इतना ही. थैंक यू.